Well, good afternoon. So today's inspiration comes from sunny Gosport aboard the Pixel Flyer, which is a fantastic, for those of you into your sailing, a fantastic Class 40 or Open 40?
Class 40.
Class 40, very quick race boat, which for those of you in the sailing world, you're going to be hearing a lot more about over the coming months and years, but I'm not here to tell you about that today. Instead, I'm really pleased that Paula Reid has joined us. Paula is somebody I heard speak last year at Explorers Connect. Not only does she manage to run a business and have a home life, she's been to the South Pole, she's sailed around the world, and 101 other things on a constantly evolving bucket list. And I'm sure there are lots of messages, lots of tips we can take today. So Paula, thanks very much for giving your time today. If somebody says to you, "Oh, hi Paula, nice to meet you," what do you do? How on earth do you reply to that?
I think I have a collection of job titles actually, it depends on the situation, but I love using the word adventurer because that immediately ignites people's interest and they're like, "Oh, an adventurer, really, are you?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I can be all sorts of things, but in my business life I talk about doing leadership development, performance enhancement, or performance catalyst I quite like. I definitely call myself an adventurer. I've also written some books, so there's the author title, which comes in handy sometimes. And then I've just started a master's degree in positive psychology. So I guess I could add psychology to my little list. But adventure is a great one. It opens up doors and it gets people talking to me.
So I guess the question, what does adventure mean to you?
I think, for me it's big. For me it's a big sort of investment of my courage, if you like, but for other people it could be something completely different. So I think a holiday adventure, or even just setting foot outside your house if you're agoraphobic, could be an adventure for them. So I think it's something about kind of exploring, not necessarily unknown territory, but exploring yourself, exploring a place, exploring life, where everything's not fixed and certain and guaranteed. So there's a bit of wandering off the beaten path, and whether that's just going to, I don't know, to the Alps or skiing to the South Pole, it varies for everyone. I think it's also in your stretch zone. So it's not a comfort thing, it's somewhere that stretches you a little bit. And an adventure could be having a baby, could be setting up a business.
Is there, when I heard you talk at Explorers Connect, you'd just come back from the South Pole, you had some war wounds to prove it, and some great footage. Somebody, Ben, who calls himself Polar Ben, came out with a quote at the Royal Geographical Society last November, and he said, "Polar exploration is the crack cocaine of adventure, because once you've been, it's very difficult to get a greater high than that." So when you come back from something as awesome as the South Pole, is it difficult to find something else that you find as exciting or as a challenge, or do you look at it and you go, "Okay, this is done, now I can go and do something that's even more amazing"?
It is one of the highest highs, if we're going to use that analogy, as in a drug. You can get hooked or obsessed about it, and it is, and you come back on a high, and then coming down off of it can be quite depressing and quite flat. So, and then I'm in two minds about this one. I think I seek and strive now for fresh challenge and fresh adventure, which is hard to beat when I've done 113 things on my bucket list. But then again, as I said, I think there's adventure in almost everything we do. So I guess it's about stimulus and variety for me to give me that hit. Having said that, it's really hard now to find something that will push me and challenge me and develop me as much as that South Pole trip did.
But talking of your bucket list, one of the many great things about your website is how it's constantly evolving. You tick things off your bucket list, you add things on as you hear about things that jump out at you. Very often I talk to people and they can identify a particular event in life, and for me personally, I find it quite sad when people say when somebody close to them perhaps was ill or passed away, it made them reevaluate.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit sad if we have to wait for something to happen like that. Was there anything like that for you, or are you just naturally courageous and out there causing mayhem forever?
I agree with you, Nick. I think it is sad that a big life-threatening thing has to happen for people to get that perspective. But if that's what it takes sometimes, and somebody then lives a fuller life, then that's a good thing, I suppose. For me, I luckily didn't have that. My family and my background wasn't indicating anything to this nature at all. I think one of the defining moments was at school when I was 13, and I fell in with the wrong crowd, which made me then quite naughty and rebellious, which I loved. So I shared a birthday with a rebel at school, and we got pelted with eggs and flour, and I kind of enjoyed it and realised it was a bit more fun and made me feel a bit more alive than the normal stuff. So that started it, I think. And then my school was quite a forward-thinking school, and a few of us went to India for a month with the school when I was about 16. And it was a very off-the-beaten-track experience, and we went to places where they hadn't seen Westerners before. So that was quite unusual for a school to actually put that on. So I think that was my second defining moment. And then the bucket list thing came out of the fact that after each calendar year, I used to write down all the stuff I'd done, the highlights of that year. And I realised that some years were quite bereft of activity and some were jam-packed. So I started to do that more proactively.
There was a book, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago that came out about how to build dens and so on. And it was massively popular one Christmas. And it seemed to me that there was a huge outpouring of parents thinking, this is what we used to do.
Yeah.
Why on earth can't we do this with our children?
Yeah, I think for every action there's a reaction, and with this safeness and a fairly stable, fairly safe society these days, the reverse of that is that, of course, we crave some danger or some excitement or some energy or some exploration. So I think it's us looking back at the good old days, but I also think it's a reaction to really how fairly safe and stable our lives are, and how we're probably only dipping 1 inch deep into our reserves at the moment. We've got so much more in us, and we're not really exploring that at the moment.
Yeah. And another thing I particularly piqued my interest on your website was you had a great video clip of you dragging tyres around a beach, which I guess was somewhere near here probably. And you made the comment, so this is my life at the moment. I'm commuting to London 3 or 4 days a week to work. So you have the travel time, you have your work time, and then you're dragging tyres around the coast because you don't just, unless you're rich enough and frankly silly enough to pay somebody to drop you at the South Pole, you don't get there without a level of determination and fitness, to put it lightly. How do you manage to do all of this stuff? You have a business to run, you have a social life, you have a family life, you have a work life, and then you still have to get fit enough and do everything possible to get ready to trek to the South Pole. How on earth do you fit it all in?
Yeah, I do think it's along the lines of ask a busy person to do something and they will always find the time to do it. And the more relaxed I get, or the less I have on, the less I actually do. When I haven't got much work on, or life has slowed down for whatever reason, my pace slows and I get out of bed later or whatever, and I find I achieve even less. So part of it, I think, is that not hyperactivity, but that sharpness and focus and determination you get when you are actually busy. So you're more able to do more and slot more in. And then there was a lovely energy that I got from tyre pulling. So at the end of the day, when I thought I was tired and couldn't stand going out and pulling those blooming tyres, once I was out there, like any physical exercise or fresh air, you then feel re-energised. So actually it did me good to do some of the physical training alongside the commuting to London. So there was a benefit to it. When I was preparing to do the Global Challenge around the World Yacht Race, I ended up getting up earlier and earlier and going to bed later and later, trying to cram everything in. But when you've got a massive goal or a dream or a vision that's important to you, then you do what it takes.
So do you think, some people say to me, it's simply a matter of priorities, and if you want something badly enough, you will do whatever it takes. And if that means you have to get up at 4 a.m. every morning for 3 years, that's what you'll do. Do you think it is a case of just deciding, right, these are my priorities for this year or this stretch of my life? And if so, is there a danger then of there's an interesting debate I went to, Sir Clive Woodward was debating about, in the UK, people call obsession, it has a negative connotation. It suggests that actually it's a character flaw to obsess over something. His argument was no, it's just another word for focus. And if you don't obsess over something, you're probably not going to do it as well as you could do. Do you think you're quite an obsessed person when you have a project? Do you focus like a laser to the exclusion of everything else, or?
No, I think I wouldn't call it that, and I don't know whether it's the negative connotations of that word, but I think there's the head and the heart, and there's the logistics and the passion. You know, there's both things come into play. So the passion and the drive and the emotion will push me, but then there's just logistics and efficiency and timetabling and prioritising. So I think it's both. I wouldn't call it obsessive. The bigger the challenge I take part in, the more preparation is needed, because it's dangerous and I might die. So of course I've got to put the hours in and the commitment, but I think it's reasonable and realistic, and it's lit by my fire and my passion, but it's carried out by logistics and efficiency.
You mentioned at school you were in with a fun crowd and enjoyed going off to India and so on. When things are going wrong, and when you sail around the world, things do go wrong. You can't help it. No matter how well prepared you are, things will go wrong. When you're in the Southern Ocean and it's 3 a.m, and perhaps in that particular leg you're never going to win it because you've had an equipment failure or somebody's ill or whatever it might be, what draws you to get out of your bunk after 30 minutes sleep to go and do a sail change, rather than going, do you know what, we could all kip another 2 hours, and actually in the overall scheme of things we're still going to finish 5th, so why don't we just get a bit more sleep and do the sail change when it's light?
Yeah.
What drives you personally to get out of that bunk and say, yeah, okay, I'll go up to the bow and get freezing cold and I'll go and do this in the pitch black of night?
It's a great question, and it definitely happened to us. Christmas Day, we'd had to do 2 medical evacuations around Cape Horn, 3,000 miles behind everyone else, had no hope of catching up. Foul weather, freezing cold, 4 crew down. We still had to get up and get that motivation. For me, it's inside me. It's my determination to do the best job I can in the circumstances, and out of that comes the pride and the satisfaction of job well done and well done me. And out of that, I find that I perhaps am role modelling or setting the standards that other people can then reference, which has a bigger impact than just getting me out of my bunk. It gets everyone else out of their bunk as well. So, and I'm not perfect. I'm not the only one who managed to maintain motivation when it's tough. So it's inside me. It's my belief in giving it your best shot, no matter what circumstances are going on. And I've got a couple of phrases that I use a lot. One is choose your attitude. So no matter what happens to you, you can choose to be glum and despondent and fed up and angry and depressed and rant and rave and cry and give up, or you can choose to step up and deal with it and put your positive attitude on, and you'll feel better for it anyway. And my other favourite phrase is pain is temporary, pride is forever. So no matter what pain you're going through at the time, including my trauma going to the South Pole, the result or the success or the achievement or the fact that you behaved with dignity and you respected everyone and you put a smile on, no matter what, that will stay with you forever.
And do you think a lot of people also credit determination to not wanting to let teammates down? And you see a lot in the Olympics, for example. I'll never forget when you see the interviews with the rowers after, where they can barely stand up, they've given so much, and they're asked, how do you do it, how does it feel? And rather than personal pride, I'm struck by how often they turn around and they say, how could I let the guy or the girl to my side down? We've all been through it. We do it for each other. And you hear it from the military a lot as well, that you do it for your unit, the mates beside you. If that's the case, then if you go off and do a solo challenge, and you've done a mix of both, you've been on a team in the boat, and you've done other random things where you're reliant upon your own skills and your own determination, if that motivation of I don't want to let them down is taken away from you, and nobody can see what you're doing, it does then become a question of just personal pride.
Yeah, I don't want to let myself down. I have standards. I'm critical of myself. I'm sometimes observing myself from out of my body. So I'm probably my greatest critic. So I think I've got a stronger determination not to let myself down. And also there's friends, family, perhaps people that have donated some money towards a charity. There is a world outside of a solo trip. And if people have supported and encouraged me or contributed to a fundraising cause, then of course I wouldn't like to let those people down either.
So Paula, you mentioned you're currently doing a master's in psychology. Is this a logical extension of being fascinated by what drives people, what their motivation is?
I think I have felt and lived through and now believe in positive psychology, but I've never studied it or known its science or its theories or models. So I've learnt to believe in positive psychology, positive mindset, choose your attitude, visualizing success, and it came out of sports psychology. So there's an element of sport and adventure that crosses over. So it's all that having a positive mental attitude, which gives you positive energy to be able to push through the pain and the barriers and all that. So I've kind of lived it and breathed it, and now I want to study it. But also I really believe in it. I really believe that people's lives and the way they see and experience life can be changed if they had a positive attitude. So that's great. And then I'm fascinated by motivation. But I think what I might do my dissertation on is the resilience end of things. So when the going gets tough and the tough get going, that bit, that's the edge that really fascinates me. The difference between, I was going to say hope, but I'm not sure I agree with the hope thing. But sometimes it's life and death. When an adventurer, an explorer, a mountaineer, or Everest, or the pole, if people are teetering on, quitting or not quitting, or dying or living, what is that thing that pulls them through? That is the bit that really fascinates me, and I'd love to study more.
Well, Sir Ranulph Fiennes says it's his father. I've heard him say the same thing 4 or 5 times when asked, when he's in a really precarious situation, when everything is telling him, this is stupid, you're pushing it too far, give up. He says he thinks of his father, and what would his father say? And I guess we all have different ways of coping with extreme stress.
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot of strategies and a lot of tactics and a bit of psychology, amateur psychology, and I've got my mantras and my phrases and my voices in my head and my don't quit tigers and all sorts, and it's all built up as a little toolbox over the years, so that I guess when I get stuck, I open up my toolbox and I pull out phrases and quotes and inspiration and poems and other people who have succeeded. Going to the South Pole, I was in huge difficulty, and ultimately, having used up all my toolbox, I eventually referenced the army and what they go through in Afghanistan or Iraq, and I thought if they can carry on and if they can get through the trauma and the hell that they have to go through, then so can I. And I've never used that one before, but my toolbox was empty, and I had to really dig deep to find something else that would push me on a bit further.
Thank you, Paula. So, could you tell, for people who might be interested in coaching or to find out more about you and what's on your ever-evolving bucket list, how can they find you? How can they get hold of you?
Well, I've got my website, so www, of course, and it's my name, so Paula Reid, reid.com. On there is my bucket list and a few films and what I do, because I do work as well as adventure. And then my email's there, but it's again my name, so paula@paulareid.com. If anyone wants some inspiration, if they want help on an adventure or some technical expertise, or great if they want coaching or I do speaking at conferences and events. So any contact around that would be great.
Fantastic, thank you.